Woody's Roundup, right here every day. Woody's Roundup, come on, it's time to play. You know there's Jessie the youngling cowgirl, and the old prospector, and Woody the man himself, because it's time for Sheriff Woody. He's the very best, he's the rootinest, tootinest cowboy in the wild, wild west. Welcome back to StillerBros at the Movies, where today we revisit one of our favorite franchises of all time, in what may be the most in what may feel to some the most unnecessary movie of the summer, Toy Story 5. We don't need to tell you guys that Toy Story is one of our favorite movies of all time. We've spent so much time on this channel talking about how much we love the original, and we even took last year as an opportunity to gush about it for 20 minutes. If you haven't seen it before, you can click the icon right now. It's still one of my favorite videos that we have ever put together on this channel, and I absolutely love it. But if you don't have 20 minutes to kill, here's a rough synopsis.
This looks ancient.
What? No, it's only 30 years old. I remember seeing this in theaters.
Yes, you're old. Who cares?
Needless to say, when it was announced that Toy Story 5 was in the works, we were, of course, like most, skeptical, but also excited. Especially since we spent most of our Toy Story 4 video saying that we did not want a Toy Story 5 because Toy Story 4 had been so devastating for us, as it was, yet again, the movie that seemed to end the Toy Story franchise in one way or another. But now here we are with Toy Story 5, and it feels almost ridiculous to think about that just a stupid little animated movie about toys is now 31 years on as a global billion-dollar phenomenon. And let's face it, that wasn't the only wrong thing we said in that video. Because they've already got 2 movies set for next year with Onward and Soul. This time next year we'll have seen both of them. But the important thing is that now Toy Story 5 is happening. It has happened. And now we kind of got to talk about it because it exists. And it's out there. And if we're anything, we are suckers for the Toy Story franchise. So this time around, the director is Pixar legend Andrew Stanton, who has been there as the second animator ever hired for Pixar, and has basically been one of the main creative architects on every Toy Story movie since the first one. He co-wrote the first and second one. He wrote the story for the third one, and he wrote the fourth one. Yeah, so now he's back writing with his co-director Kenna Harris, who is, with this movie, Pixar's very first non-binary director. And with this we have what might be a somewhat controversial point of the movie's storyline, which is that this is a movie about Andy's toys, well, Bonnie's toys, dealing with screens, technology, just the general stuff that makes a lot of people, when they heard the idea of this movie, think, oh crap, this is just the Pixar top brass yelling about how kids these days don't understand. But we're a little more understanding. We're hoping that this movie doesn't just end up being an old man yells at clouds. Hopefully when Andrew Stanton says, no, I did not want this to be old man yells at clouds because it would make me look like the biggest hypocrite in the world due to how addicted I am to my phone. But this is also a movie that is going to kind of move in a different direction for Toy Story, because this is the first movie that explicitly doesn't necessarily have the 2 main characters of the entire franchise, Woody and Buzz, as the main protagonists. Now, don't get me wrong, they're in it, obviously, and they still seem to be doing their very Woody and Buzz things. God knows we're probably never going to fully get rid of these characters, even when we get to like Toy Story 10 in like 2050, when it's like Tom Hanks and Tim Allen are basically retired now, so they've swapped them out for Chris Evans and Colin Hanks full time. But really, the thing that this movie really interests me is the fact that Jessie, who was introduced in Toy Story 2 and has been a staple for the entire rest of the franchise, is the centralized character. It's kind of interesting because Jesse, for the last couple of movies, has mostly been kind of sidelined. Like, it's not that she wasn't there or that she didn't get anything to do. Toy Story 4 kind of felt like a movie where they were like, we need to focus mostly on Woody and this completely new character that we made up.
But Jessie hasn't exactly not been focused. She was the centralized character in the Halloween special Toy Story of Terror, but really, Jessie's probably one of the more interesting characters in the movies, so to have her be front and center kind of feels like, what took you so long?
Considering the fact that Jessie's character was given this kind of idea of, oh, she's like a tough girl and everything like that, so that they could give her some kind of agency, but then they also give her this tragic backstory that kind of opens the door to where the rest of the franchise went after Toy Story 2, with the idea that Jessie used to belong to a girl, used to have this beautiful relationship with this Oscar-nominated song attached to it, which was the first real point in any Pixar movie that they were like, oh, we can hurt people now. But it kind of creates this kind of deep mythology into Toy Story, and it creates this idea of Jessie that's been touched on here and there, with the idea that she's got abandonment issues and claustrophobia. There's an entire 20-year gap that we do not know what was going on with Jessie. I don't know if we're going to get answers in this movie, but the important thing is that here is Joan Cusack's chance to actually carry a movie for the first time in a long time, because apparently Joan Cusack has been semi-retired for a long time. She just was like, I'm going to run my store for a little bit because Hollywood's kind of exhausting to me right now.
And also along for the ride, we playing off of this, joining the cast, we have the likes of Conan O'Brien, Bad Bunny, Maddie Matheson, and Craig Robinson, and as the main antagonist of the film, Greta Lee as Lilypad.
Lilypad, who is basically a leapfrog stand-in. And we say antagonist and not villain because it's a Toy Story movie. So no Toy Story movie since the first one has ever just had a straight-up villain as its antagonist.
No, just because their role in the movie is to be the antagonist doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil, as we've seen from the likes of Prospector and Lotso Hugenbear and Gabby Gabby.
Characters that do bad things, but in some way or another have some kind of understandable motivation attached to them. And so we expect something. And now I think it's about time that if we didn't mention this, I know we'd probably get murdered. So usually in a Toy Story movie, Randy Newman will record one or two new songs just to be like, hey, I'm writing the score for these, I want to contribute some kind of piece to that will tell the story a little bit more. But this time around, Randy Newman is still contributing the score, but for the first time in franchise history, a completely new song is being added to the Toy Story mythos that Randy Newman did not write. Instead, Taylor Swift wrote the new song, I Knew It, I Knew You, which is told from Jessie's point of view as kind of a sequel to When Somebody Loved Me. And I should probably say, I like the song fine, but I'm just a little bit disappointed that we're not getting a new Randy Newman song.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's a big missed opportunity in this whole thing, that Randy Newman has been a staple for a long time, and it just kind of feels weird that we're moving forward without him. Now, on the other hand, the more logical side of my brain is telling me Randy Newman is 82 years old. We are lucky that we got him doing as much as he has been doing on this next one. But if he specifically says tomorrow, I don't want to do Toy Story 6, you can do it without me, and they're just like, okay, I guess we'll give it to the Goranson kid, that's fine too. But for right now, we just have this idea that Taylor Swift recorded a whole new song for this. It's a decent song, I like it. I'll probably cry when it's used in the movie. But for right now, the other thing of it is that a lot of people already figured it out when they were releasing billboards with 13 clouds and TS stamped on it. And it's like, guys, I think Taylor's getting a little too lazy with her Easter eggs. Well, I'm gonna get doxxed.
That's your fault.
Anyway, yeah. So, yeah. And like we said, we don't dislike the fact that Toy Story 5 exists. There was always the possibility when Toy Story 4 ended on a big, this is the end note, there was always going to be the possibility that Pixar was going to be like, I think we have one more in us. There is always going to be the possibility that Pixar is going to be like, I think we have one more in us, especially because they keep churning out sequels to movies that it almost feels like, no, I think this pretty much ended the way it needed to end.
I mean, let's face it, the fact that we're only 5 movies deep in 31 years is pretty impressive control, especially in nowadays, but part of that is just the fact that they're not going to make a sequel unless they have an idea, and clearly there was an idea here.
And on top of everything else, this tissue pack has been with us for 7 years. We got it outside of the theater that was screening A Star is Born 2019. Okay, so before we get started on this, I want to show off. The movie theater is handing out tissues in front of the theater that was showing A Star is Born. And look what they say on them. Every now and then we will bring it with us for a movie that we know we're going to cry at. And so we've been slowly but surely pulling it out tissues from it. We're down to the last 2.
This is the end of an era for us, guys.
Even though it's a very short era. I'm going to be honest, these aren't even great tissues. They're like really dry and everything like that. But I think we've been saving these for something special.
We've been showing it off occasionally every time we pull it out, but
it's very clear that every single Toy Story movie at this point makes us cry tears of joy, tears of nostalgia, tears of absolute sadness. But if this movie ends up being exactly the same way as the others, where it proves that they know exactly how to just kind of tap into that absolute emotional gut punch, then this is the end for this pack of tissues.
it's kind of weird.
It's weird that we're romanticizing this so much because we have not pulled this out in years. But the important thing is that Toy Story 5, we are always going to be optimistic. We've pointed out if we're suckers for anything, we are suckers for the Toy Story franchise in all its forms. And we're going in there prepared to cry like we have before, and I don't know. Maybe this will be the one that we actually don't like, but I seriously doubt that. The Toy Story movies are our childhood. They are slowly but surely becoming our adulthood. We just rewatched the first 4 day after day after day to get to this point, and now it's time to end what I've been calling the 5 days of crying. So, we'll talk about how much we cried after the jump.
Well, long story short, we liked the Toy Story movie.
Yeah.
Fine, you can make about a dozen more Toy Story movies. My heart can apparently take being broken into a million pieces all over again.
So, it's no big shock that the guy who's been making Toy Story movies for as long as there have been Toy Story movies is really good at making Toy Story movies.
Yeah, it's insane to think about, but we're 5 movies into this, and they made another great movie out of Toy Story.
And you can argue how necessary the last 2 movies of this franchise are. You can argue a lot of things. You can argue whether or not an entire movie is necessary, because what is a movie if not an unnecessary thing that you can just enjoy for as long as it's playing? But we're not going to get into that. The important thing is that you can argue how unnecessary Toy Stories 4 and 5 are, but when you consider the hit rate of this franchise, you can't argue that at the very least, if they have to keep making movies after this, if they have to keep making movies after what I guess we have to call the original trilogy now, we are, at least they're making good movies and not like cranking out cash grab sequel after cash grab sequel after cash grab sequel like you could call many others. Despicable Me.
But ultimately, I had a great time, and I loved being a part of this adventure again with these characters.
And I think the thing that makes this movie a little bit different from the previous movies, and that makes it actually clear why they needed to tell this particular story is the fact that Woody and Buzz are side characters this time around. This isn't another movie where we're like, all that character development Woody went through in the last 3 movies, let's just ignore that and have him go on yet another adventure where he needs to learn a new lesson about being a toy, which is technically kind of code for growing up or being a parent or whatever metaphor you want to latch onto this.
But this time we really focus on Jesse, and I'm not to say that Jesse takes over the whole movie. It's really more of an ensemble piece with Woody, Jesse, and Buzz sort of taking a little bit more equal time.
Though to be fair, most of Woody and Buzz's stuff does feel like kind of a side thing where they're off kind of doing shenanigans in Bonnie's room while Jesse's off on this life-affirming adventure.
And it was just such an amazing thing to see, just how emotional they can make us all over again for what we saw in Toy Story 2.
27 years after remember sitting in that exact same theater crying over Jesse's tragic origin story, I sat in that theater again and cried watching the resolution to Jesse dealing with that. And yeah, I think they really hit it home about what the next step is in this franchise. Also, if you're a Swiftie who hasn't tried to go to our house and burn it down yet, should just let you know that the Taylor Swift song does not show up till the end. So if you really, really, really want to go just for this, you're going to have to sit through an entire really good Toy Story movie just to get to it.
And then you'll probably watch the 33-year-old grown-ass men crying their eyes out in the theater watching this credits roll.
Yeah. Sorry about that to anyone who might have been in the theater with us, but then again, we had a couple of really loud and fidgety kids in our theater that did not hamper our viewing experience that much, but only because we were still watching a Toy Story movie.
Yeah. But one thing that kind of stands out really is the fact that this cast is still great.
Yeah, even though all these years have gone by, you can very audibly hear that everyone has aged a good 20-something years since the first time you heard them. It's definitely clear that they know the mode that they need to switch into to get to these characters. Tom Hanks is still good as Woody. Tim Allen still knows exactly which buttons to press as Buzz. Joan Cusack is handling the heavy lifting that is Jesse's origin story coming to the foreground this time around. And the big changes of Mr. Potato Head being Jeff Bergman now, it's just kind of interesting. At some points, it's nearly identical. You could almost swear it's Don Rickles again, but in other scenes, it's just very much, okay, you're going with a different interpretation, but it doesn't sound like Mr. Potato Head to me.
It's just one of those things where it's probably at least part of the reason why the Potato Heads are given smaller roles this time around.
In fact, most of the original toy cast are there for mostly the same thing that they were doing in Toy Story 4, where it's like they don't get to participate in the main adventure, they just kind of get to comment on stuff. I think John Ratzenberger only has maybe like 2 lines. Wallace Shawn shows up a couple of times. But otherwise, most of the lion's share of things goes to the new characters voiced by Conan O'Brien and Craig Robinson.
Yeah, and really, we got some funny characters. I mean, Conan O'Brien is very good in this.
Yeah, a big shock. Conan O'Brien is funny.
Yeah, I know, right?
And it's just and the fact that what could have easily just been a joke of literal toilet humor shows kind of a bit of character depth in a way that Toy Story typically does with characters that you'd swear are only there for one joke.
And we're gonna now have the second year in a row where the host is in an Academy Award nominated movie.
I mean, when the critic reactions to this were coming out and they were like, oh, it's Oscar worthy, it's probably gonna be a contender for Best Animated Feature, and it's like, a Toy Story movie is going to be nominated for Best Animated Feature, you say? Color me shocked.
I mean, the only reason they didn't win the first and second ones didn't even get nominated was because the category didn't exist yet.
Yeah. And they technically got one for the first movie because they got an honorary Oscar for being the first fully CGI animated feature. But Randy Newman's score is still fantastic, nostalgic as all hell. Totally forgot to mention that Tim Allen technically gets to stretch a little bit because he didn't just play one Buzz, he didn't play two Buzzes, he played 51 Buzzes in this movie, and every single one of them has a pretty substantial character arc, even if they are mostly whittled down to a comedic subplot for most of the movie.
Yeah. Which, strangely, I didn't find all that... I didn't find it, like, annoying or anything, but it kind of felt...
It kind of felt tacked on until eventually it got to the resolution of why did we need to do this in specifics.
Until the plot meets up, it feels very tacked on. I liked it because, I mean, I'm wearing this T-shirt. You think I don't like more Buzz Lightyear in my life?
But it's also one of those things where it almost feels like, okay, here is just a funny little comedic subplot that doesn't seem to fit in with the rest. It kind of does, because if you pick up on certain context clues, you can kind of be like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but how does it fit with the rest of it narratively? And then it comes to, and it's like, okay, that makes sense.
And then it just gets better and better.
And it ends on a pretty strong gag.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, this is the second Toy Story movie in a row that actually has a mid-credits scene, and the first Toy Story movie at all that has a post-credits, not scene, but definitely a gag. But then there's the fact that this is also just like a love letter to Toy Story, to loved ones gone away, loved ones who have stuck around, the people growing up. The people who have always been there. And like we said in our video from last year, Toy Story means the world to us because of the people we don't have around anymore. And in a lot of ways, like we said in our Toy Story 4 video, these characters mean so much to us because we've grown up with them. We have known these characters just about as long as we have been conscious of story, of characters, of everything like that. The Toy Story characters mean something to us. They mean something to a lot of people. The franchise wouldn't still be going 31 years later if it wasn't, and Pixar wouldn't be celebrating its 40th year as a working animation studio if it wasn't made by a bunch of guys who know exactly how to make people feel for what are in real life inanimate objects. And if you're in any way uncomfortable with what the trailers seem to be selling as, oh, tech is destroying the youth of the world, no, this movie is much more nuanced than that. In fact, the tech is destroying the youth of the world idea is very much something that the characters have to grapple with as they are going on this adventure. And I truly love the resolution. I truly love the way that Jesse's story finally gets some kind of happy ending. And I truly love the fact that if they have to keep making these movies, somebody who actually cares is at the helm and not just a director for hire.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the things that makes these Toy Story movies so great. And once again, if this is the end, I'm satisfied, but if they have to keep making them, well, good luck in Toy Story 10, once again, starring Chris Evans and Colin Hanks taking on the roles of Buzz and Woody.
Because Tom Hanks and Tim Allen will be long retired or dead.
So, that's it for right now. Toy Story 5 is yet another good Toy Story movie. I don't know what else to say. I just really, really like these movies. I love the hell out of these characters. And if there's more, I will gladly see more. And if this is truly the end, well then, I'll be sad to see it go. But that's it for right now. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave in the comments what you may or may not have thought of Toy Story 5 or the entire Toy Story extended franchise. And be sure to tune in next time when... Thanks for watching them, bitch! Bye.